Good day, it's Saturday, and I'm going to continue with my teaching on the Ten Commandments, which, of course, is written on your heart as it is on everyone's. A point we'll discuss as we get further into the Ten Commandments. I'm wearing this hat not just to avoid glare, but I guess this would be the hat I would wear if I was capable of shoveling snow. But my 5 back surgeries and the 2 rods and 9 screws, well, they prevent all that. But I'm not complaining about anything. I'm having a good time. And I will point out that as a diabetic, I'm on the successful 34th day of a fast, which includes pretty much water made into coffee sometimes and tea sometimes, and an occasional few ounces of fruit juice or milk when my blood sugar goes really low, meaning below 75. But I'm doing really good, and my insulin intake has gone from like 25 units a day to maybe 5, so that I don't wake up with any lower than that of blood sugar. But I'm bragging on God, not on me. It's a great time, and it's a great time of intimacy. Don't let God steal that private time, that precious time you have with Him in sacrificial yearning that fasting demonstrates. Spend time with God, and don't be feared by what man says. You take your blood sugar as often as necessary and get through with it. I'm going to break it on Wednesday, I believe, and be ready for Valentine's Day eating. It always requires a nice formal meal. I've always joked that there's only one thing my wife really likes to make for dinner, and that's reservations. So we have reservations up at the Green. So let's get to my next section with, we did the first 3 yesterday. The first 3 of the 10 Commandments, which are a prescription against paganism. I'm the Lord your God. You shall have no other God before me. That means polytheism, one of the ways that paganism manifests in culture. Number 2, do not make or worship idols. Well, that's blatantly idolatry, one of the ways paganism operates. Number 3, do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain or for your own personal reasons. Well, that's magic. So the first 3 were prescriptions against paganism, causing failing cultures: polytheism, idolatry, and magic. Remember, pagans have many gods that they make up for their own purposes. The people of the covenant have one God who makes them and this creation for His own purposes. So now we're up to the next section. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day of rest to keep it holy. The 4th commandment is an injunction to remember to keep the 7th day as a day set apart for rest and worship. There's much to be talked about here. I mean, just faithfulness and worship and rest, but we're not going to go there now. I want to make the points that are imperative and intrinsic to the Word and the stone tablets. We understand many of the laws given by God to the Israelites may have application only to them, whether it be circumcision, which, we found out it's not a bad thing to do, or the dietary laws, which we found out that, they're pretty healthy things to do. But the 10 Commandments, however, are seen as having a universal application for all mankind, not just for Israel. Thus, all people are admonished to acknowledge one God who makes them for His purposes, and not to murder and commit adultery and steal and bear false witness and covet. But the fact is, commandment about the rest of the 7th day finds itself among these other commandments after the first 3 suggest that it is to be a universal application. Now, historically, in his letter from the Romans, Paul stated that Gentiles could discern realities about the Creator God and His morality by what was written in nature and on their hearts. So he's acknowledging that the Gentiles had things written on their hearts as well, by the same Creator God. I suggest that perhaps it's harder to discern the 6 days of work to 1 day of rest than the other commandments. You don't just get it by reading on your heart, but once you start doing it, really does become very attractive. It's important, remember, it used to be work 7 days a week or work every day, but the Lord put it on the stone tablet. Now, if the week is a natural phenomenon, which it is not, it is a phenomenon only humans know. You don't see animals doing anything different on Sunday than they did on Thursday. Other phenomena used to measure time have to do with natural phenomenon. Days have to do with the earth rotating on the axis relative to the sun. Months have to do with the cycles of the moon. Seasons and years have to do with the revolution of the earth around the sun. There's no similar phenomena which suggests or requires the week. The week is unique and created by God. He worked for 6 days and rested on the seventh. Oh, yes, some ancient people divided time. Other than days, the Egyptians had weeks of 10 days. No day of those 10 was any different than the other 9. They all acted the same. The Hebrews alone, among all the ancient people, had 1 day in 7, which was quantitatively different than the other 6 days. It was set apart for rest and worship of their Creator. Some people argue that during the captivity, who influenced who, the Babylonians or the Israelites, whatever, because they did have a 7-day week. They gave names to all of the days in accordance to the 7 celestial bodies that could be discerned. The sun, the moon, Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn. While they may have fashioned a kind of a 7-day week, again, there was not any one day that called for any certain activity or restraint any different that distincted it from any other. Now, we have modern chronobiologists, and they postulate a rhythm in human beings which suggests a natural cycle of needing 1 day in 7 for rest. There's some evidence that this is a natural human need, that the Jewish practice of resting 1 day in 7 came to be accepted wherever the Jews were dispersed. And others also who came in contact with practice loved it. The Jewish historian Josephus reported that there was not a place in the Roman Empire to which the Jews had been dispersed that did not adopt the Jewish custom of resting 1 day in 7. There seems to be a universal affinity for this practice in ratio for all humanity. It beats 24/7, 365. What is it, 24/7, 313? That's a lot better. It's a weekly holiday to celebrate God's creation, and His creations do so willingly. The divinity of this concept is also suggested by the second point to be made regarding this commandment, and that is, it was seen as being connected with creation. For the Lord made the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day He rested. He modeled this, He demonstrated it, and then He insisted we do as He did. The rest of the 7th day is somehow a recognition and a commemoration of creation. I want to say that again. It's a commemoration of creation. Creation is certainly a concept that is applicable to all people. And if we're all created, and we are, then the rest of the seventh day is an acknowledgement and a commemoration of creation. Then it's a concept that is needful for all people. Now, the third point is the pivotal place this commandment occupies in the list. Cannot be said that this has to do with our relationship to God in the same manner that the first three do. This commandment is an acknowledgement of who God is. It's not the same as one God who makes us for his purposes. It's a little bit different. Resting on one day in 7 is something that humans are being admonished to positively do. On the other hand, it cannot be said that this commandment has to do solely with our relationship with each other either, in the, like don't kill and the rest of them do. So even though the commandment is given to all, and it's real clear, masters and servants and natives and foreigners, this commandment has immediately to do not with our relationship to God as such, or even with our relationship to our neighbors as such. It has to do immediately to do with our relationship to a day, or more particularly, one day in 7, the Sabbath day. It's a holy day to be set apart. Thus, the commandment occupies a significant place on the list in that it's the meeting of heaven, the universal, and earth, the temporal. The rest of the seventh day rest, is intended to be a little bit of heaven on earth. On earth we work. Before the Sabbath we worked all the time. In heaven, we rest. On earth, we move from work to worship and back again. In heaven, we rest and we worship. And in heaven, the church is triumphant. On earth, we're confrontationally, it's a bummer. On earth, the church gathers and scatters. In heaven, we just gather. We gather on the Lord's Day. We're gathered like the day of Jesus Christ. The day is meant to be a foreshadowing of heavenly rest. The rest of the seventh day is at the conjuncture of heaven and earth, the cross, the temporal and the eternal. It includes worship and food. And it's a day set apart, given to us, and made distinctly different from other days by the Creator God who modeled it for us. It's significant that today in the Western civilization, as we, rebuke Christendom, and we have no distinction, and it's just become another day of buying and selling, to really take seriously that God declared one day in 7 to be set apart, we need to do that ourselves. We need to regard it as holy, and which we should do. What should we do now that we live in a culture that is officially not regarded today any different than the other? Are we not like the Jews in Babylon who ask, how can we sing the songs of Zion in this strange land? To us, the rest of the seventh day should remain natural and expected. To our society, it's largely been lost. Perhaps historical vestige. And I think we can take responsibility for that. We allowed it. The Lord spoke about it. The salt losing its flavor and no good for a preservative. We're supposed to be that. You need to keep the Sabbath day distinct and holy and full of reverence. Remember, it's about commemorating creation. I want to get to the fifth commandment quickly. I think I can do it in just a few moments. It's pretty easy. The commandment to honor parents is generally to do with parental authority, and because parents are entrusted by God with their children, and children are to honor their parents. This isn't like the other commandments. It is universal, but it's the only one that comes with a bonus. And God says he will add years to your life or days to your life. To do so, if you do so, that your days might be long or lengthy upon the earth and the land which God would show you. Now, how are we to understand this commandment when parents do not prescribe to a godly standard of child rearing? Today you can argue what is a godly standard? I'll fight you to the death. But how should the state relate to parental authority is very complex. In a confused world, it's been suggested that parents stand in the place of God to their minor children, and their children should honor the God of their father and mother. And in that sense, it has to do with the Sabbath rest in that it's transitional. And about the Sabbath rest, the commandment's primarily concerned with relationship to a day. Here we have a relationship amongst generations. And so honor the parents transitions us from being instructed supernaturally by what is written in our heart to be instructed by someone who has our best interest at heart and loves us. Well, that assumes a lot of functionality, but a godless person raising godless children and the consequences of such presently fill so many volumes you couldn't put them in my basement. And these laws were written for people who would conceptually grab and move with the law of God. Well, we've got 5 more commandments to come. I hope you'll stay tuned. Hope you'll enjoy church tomorrow. I hope you can get out through the weather. I still remain in faith at 6 o'clock. Someone's going to come and sweep my driveway, but perhaps my 4-wheel drive will carry us down and back again. Stay tuned. I'm having a good time sharing the 10 Commandments because I believe they're so very deep, very much like the Our Father, which I'm sure one day I'll have to teach in, gosh, I don't know how many installments. Father, bless us as we look to learn how to better bless you by following the cause and purpose that you've created for each one of us. In Jesus' name we pray. God bless you.